Welcome to yet another episode of Winged Victory with Rob and Scott. I being Rob,
Me
Scott
being Scott.
Scott. Our guest today is my fellow docent and brother Marine Brian Henderson, owner of this magnificent SNJ. And I wanted to talk to you specifically because I know you were a Hornet pilot in the Marine Corps, and so you've gone from pretty high speed to, well, still pretty high speed.
Yep.
And I'd like to, at some point, talk about the differences. I mean, if you can give us some background as far as flight training in the Marine Corps. Are you carrier qualified?
Yep, sure am. As most Hornet pilots are.
Yeah.
Yep.
The ones that can make it.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's a big deal. Daylight, good weather, and peacetime, you probably shouldn't get all that much extra pay for doing it. But when any of those change, that's when you guys start earning that flight pay.
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and now with the current naval flight training for jet school, with the current naval aviators, the policy is now you'll finish and get winged without ever having to go to the aircraft carrier.
Really?
So the first time you go to land on an aircraft carrier will be in your operational aircraft. So they've changed the policy. So I obviously had to do it in the T-45 to complete jet school and then get your wings, and then obviously to complete F-18 school, you had to do both day and night sessions of
Carrier
the
quals.
So
carrier
what do you
quals.
think? What is your opinion on that? I mean, is that what are they doing? Are they just cutting budget costs, or is it they got a better program?
The reason for it, one, the T-45 is starting to show some age. The other thing is the advances in the carrier landing system that they have on the Super Hornet and on the now F-35C. So they've improved the systems from what the legacy Hornet and obviously what all the prior carrier aircraft had, and to where now the boarding rate is gone up significantly. So it's almost like you get aboard almost every time, at least from the stories that I've heard. But there's also the component if you want to go the old school route, like it's a rite of passage, and nothing takes away from doing it on your own in flight school to earn those wings of gold.
Yeah. Of course, I'm second to nobody in my retrograde Ludditism. So I think, if you look down at those wings and realize you haven't put it on a deck yet, you might feel a little bit less than.
Yeah. I'm happy I did it the way I did. So,
yeah. So you came up through Pensacola and...
Yeah, so, I guess as a Marine officer, you probably start prior to Pensacola.
How about we just even take it a further step back?
Yeah.
Like, what even got you ready or motivated to, hey, I want to become a pilot?
Yeah.
Like, I'm interested in those stories from people.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida. My dad worked in aviation. He wasn't a pilot. He ran a ground service company at Fort Lauderdale International Airport, so doing all the baggage handling and fueling for most of the international carriers, because like Delta and American, they have their own services. So the company that he worked for handled the foreign carriers, and I would go to work with him as a little kid and walk around. Back then you could walk around on the flight line, and
prior 9/11.
And I still remember, being under a 747 and getting told, hey, go count the tires. And, there's 18 tires on a 747. I still remember that. And so just from an early age, being with my dad, had a, aviation bug. And then, of course, like most people, that grew up in the 80s. Top Gun came out, and
that was it.
And that was it. And so I just pretty much focused my whole life on this is what I want to do, and you couldn't tell me anything different. And so but when I finished high school, I realized that I'd done well in school, but not well enough to get into a service academy, and I didn't get a ROTC scholarship. So then I was kind of like, maybe the dream is going to die. And I went off to Auburn University and finished college. And around that time, September 11th had happened, and then the war in Iraq was starting to build up, and I kind of had another moment where it was like, hey, you got maybe a second chance. And I researched officer candidate school.
Right.
And so the Marine Corps at the time, I don't know if they still do it now, but they were the only service that would offer you an aviation contract. So, you're essentially guaranteed to go to flight school, but
at least a chance.
But they're going to find out, how well you want to become a United States Marine first. And so.
So what does that entail? Are we talking boot camp for 8 months, or?
So I had finished undergraduate, so I had a bachelor's degree. I called the recruiting district down in Miami and asked about getting into the officer program, and the question I got asked, I still remember my officer selection officer, Captain Leonard, and he said, "Did you graduate from a 4-year university?" "Yes, sir." "How fast can you run 3 miles?" But then I also wanted to be a pilot, so I had to take the aviation selection test battery, which was just basically a standardized test to see if you're smart enough. And so I was able to get a qualifying score, and then it came into getting your package ready to get selected to go to officer candidate school. So that took roughly about a year, that whole process. And so it was basically the end of 2003 is when I finally got my selection notice, and then it's off to officer candidate school for Quantico, Virginia, for 10 weeks. And that's where the Marine Corps will find out if you have what it takes to be an officer. And I think the difference between boot camp and officer candidate school is, boot camp, you've already signed the contract that you're going to be in the Marine Corps for 3, 4, 8 years, whatever you decide. And if you struggle in boot camp, well, you just stay in boot camp.
And you're just going to struggle the entire time.
Whereas at officer candidate school, they are evaluating, your potential for being a Marine Corps officer. And at that time, when I was going through, that was in January of 2004. So all of our instructors and evaluators had all just come back from the initial push into Iraq. So these are all Marines that they've just come back from the war.
They've heard that snap over their ears.
Yes, and so that was a challenge, and but it's a little bit of a joke. For the music fans, the Eminem "Lose Yourself" song, like you got one shot, So I just basically kept repeating that in my head, and this is your shot to don't blow it. So finished officer candidate school. Now I'm a second lieutenant, and then like all Marine officers, they have to go to what's called the basic school, which is a 6-month infantry style course to become like a provisional rifle platoon commander. So still not even coming close to aviation, not even seeing an airplane.
The Marine Corps is the only service that does this to their officers.
Okay.
And so these guys are out in the woods, humping rifles, digging fighting positions.
So being into airplanes and stuff the way you were, did you have any experience to this point of just on your own?
Yeah, so I
flying?
so my degree at Auburn University, I had an aviation management degree, so it's part of their business school, but it's a collegiate aviation program, and I hadn't qualified for military service, or at least an academy or something, so I was like, all right, well, I still like airplanes, so maybe the civilian route. will help. And so I went into that program, and so they get you up to your commercial multi-engine instrument. But then kind of going back to the history, what was going on in the world at that time, September 11th destroyed the aviation industry. And commercial multi-engine instrument, I had 250, 300 hours, something like that. You're not going to the airlines with that. So it was a good program, but there was still follow-on steps that I wasn't really excited about. And then with the war going on,
and that's back when you couldn't make a dime hardly doing any kind of CFI work or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or even if you're like a second seat on a corporate or something, you're not making, you're not even living.
No, and guys were lucky to get a job, flying canceled checks and things like that. At nighttime, that's all that there was.
Yeah.
So my focus, went back to, hey, my original plan, and I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get there.
So now you get through this rifling school.
Yeah. So then I finished the basic school, and then at that point now. You are able to go to flight training, and we started in Pensacola and went to it's called aviation pre-flight indoctrination. So it's all ground school and water survival stuff. So learning about navigation and aviation instruments and things like that. You still haven't touched a real airplane, and guys are failing out. Even during that period, guys that were struggling with the swimming or struggling with academics. It's the way I looked at it was, they are just trying to find out who really wants to be here and who has the ability to be here.
Yeah.
So at the point from when you started the original school with the Marines to the point where you actually get to touch an airplane, what would you say the drop-off rate was out of 100 people?
I'd say maybe about 15 to 25%
drop off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not too bad.
No, I mean most, and the thing is,
by then they've already gone through a whole bunch just to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
most
TBS would.
I'd say the officer candidate school. I was a winter class. I think we started with around 200 candidates. And these are all for aviation, infantry. I mean, this isn't just guys that want to be pilots. I think we finished with, I don't know, probably 160 or so.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. Most of the guys that were there, they kind of wanted to be there. Yeah. And then, but
well,
you're
especially at that time, because that was
you're going.
That was almost like Pearl Harbor 2.0. I mean, the whole that's the only time in my life that I remember this whole country just really like, oh my God, everybody was united and there was one purpose.
Yeah.
So you guys were the spearhead of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was Dakota Meyer, the Marine. He's got a great quote. He says, September 11th was one of the worst days of our generation's life, but he said, I'd give anything for a million September 12ths.
Yeah.
Because everybody came together.
Everybody just turned to.
Yeah, it was different.
Yep. I guess to continue on the timeline, so I finished the beginning part of Pensacola, then you get sent to a T-34C squadron for primary flight training. Now they're flying the T-6 Texan 2. So the continuation, but at that time it was a T-34C, and
maybe you ran into Arnie then, huh?
Well,
wasn't he doing that?
Yeah, maybe.
because they had helicopter pilots there as instructors as well.
Yeah, he was an instructor in the T-34C.
Yep.
So
and that's primary flight training. So that's your first introduction to military flying, and I will admit my civilian training up to that point really did help. You have to recognize, you have to be humble that, hey, whatever you learn, you're now going to learn the military way. But the stick and rudder skills, you can't really replace that. And so, and also I realized, hey, this is your competition to decide who gets to go to jet school. So I'll admit I did really well in primary flight training. My Auburn training helped a lot. But once I got to jet school in Meridian, Mississippi, flying the T-45, the phrase I use is I was a track star running against a bunch of fat kids in Pensacola, but then a bunch of other track stars. Yeah. So, and it was a big challenge. I would probably say going from the T-34 to the T-45 was the hardest leap that I've ever taken from an aviation standpoint, because you're just trying to train your brain from 190 knot brain in the T-34 to a 5/600 knot jet that can climb. At that point you were happy seeing 500 feet to 1,000 feet a minute rate of climb.
Yeah.
Now you're in a jet that can climb at probably almost close to 10,000 feet a minute and accelerate rapidly.
Yeah, it's funny because we fly this stuff out of here, and when you get instructions from clearance, they're always like, stay at or below 9,000 feet, and we're like, no problem.
Yeah.
We won't even make pattern altitude.
Yeah, I'm not blowing through that, even if I tried. Yeah. So that was a big challenge. And
it's kind of funny though, because you're like the second person to say that, because that was kind of why Arnie, he was in our episode 4 or 5, I can't remember which one, talking about 5. The T-34s, and he same thing, he had prior experience, and he said T-34 piece of cake, but then he was like, to jump the jets, he didn't even want to make the jump.
Well, and
so that's why he went to helicopters.
Yeah, but then he also went from the T-34 to the T-28.
Yeah.
And
he said that was a much more visceral.
That was a jump in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. So I guess they weren't running the T-28s when you were there.
No,
obviously.
Because
that'd be a nice transition plane, probably.
To this?
From a T-34 to jet. Yeah. If you had that T-28 in the middle.
Yeah.
To kind of get used to the speed and that visceral feeling.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
No, it makes sense, and you have other guys that can correlate, I guess, what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's kind of a common theme, I guess, so far.
Yeah.
Not too many, actually.
Well, yeah, you're the only person I think we've talked. Well, Charlie, but he went from.
But honestly,
jets.
As many talented guys as we have here, there's just a couple of you.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So to finish up kind of the timeline, so I finished T-45 training, obviously went to the aircraft carrier, and you go to the aircraft carrier by yourself. So your first time, you do
really?
Obviously a lot of practice, they call it FCLPs, field carrier landing practice. But when you go out to the ship for the first time, it's just you, and I still remember it. Our executive officer from the squadron, he led me and 2 other students, so it's just the senior, seasoned carrier pilot leading 3 idiots, in their T-45s out, and I was on the USS Theodore Roosevelt off the coast of Jacksonville. And you start getting closer to the ship, and you pull up the tack in, and you can see where it's at, and you're still flying formation, so you can't look down too much, but every now and then you'd peek over and you'd say, holy crap, there it is. And he brought us into the break and kissed us off, and next thing you know, you're on downwind for your first pass. That's they do it during the day for the T-45, so it's at least when I did it, it was 2 touch and goes and 10 traps. And if you get more touch and goes or more bolters or something like that, well, then you get a few more passes. But that's the requirement.
At that point, how are you feeling about this? Like, are you pretty confident because you guys have gone through this whole training regimen, or is it something that you still get the cold sweats thinking about?
It's kind of like, even you go back to like the first time you ever soloed a plane.
Yeah.
I will admit, like the instructors that I had in the training syllabus that you go through, obviously in the military, the training syllabus is extensive.
Yeah.
And what I used to say is like, they're going to challenge you, but they're also not going to let you go out there unless they have confidence in yourself or in you that you can do it. So then you just got to build up the confidence in yourself to go do it. And that really is, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. That's the rite of passage that everybody's kind of looking for.
Well, I'm just thinking about my first solo because you said that, and I was like, No, I don't think I was ready. Like, I was like, wait a second, what? You're gonna let me do what?
Yeah.
Like, okay. And I think I just did it because, you know, I didn't have a
You
choice
have-
because she
yeah.
just jumped out, and it was like, oh, I guess I got to go do it
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
And yeah, that was probably the first time I almost wrecked the airplane, but rolled out of it.
You know, I mean,
So,
that's the way it goes.
yeah.
Yep.
So you land, you do your
Yep,
carrier-
finished, and then that was the winging ceremony at that point, and then you find out, you know, what platform you're going to move on to. And at the time, they had, for the Marine Corps, they still were flying the EA-6B Prowler. They had Harrier slots, and then they had the F-18, and you know, I obviously always wanted the F-18.
Yeah. Sure.
And luckily, I did well enough to get selected for the Hornet, and so I went to Miramar, California, to not on a motorcycle, you know, pumping my
helmetless
fist.
in California.
I didn't
Which will get
have
you thrown
that.
in jail for 3 months.
Yeah.
But no, I went to Miramar and went to the F-18 training squadron there, and luckily was able to get orders to stay in Miramar. So after I finished F-18 school, I was assigned to an operational squadron.
So that's got to be a
Miramar.
pretty surreal experience then, really, for you, considering that that was something you wanted to do since you were a kid, and then you thought you weren't going to get that opportunity because of the schooling or whatever,
Yeah.
and then to take that one shot, go through all those things, and then you're there. You know,
Yeah.
it's Top Gun essentially, even though it's not Top Gun, but you know, it's Miramar. And
Right.
Well,
you're
it's-
flying.
and
You're going to be
it's-
flying F-18s. I mean,
Yep.
And not only that, but you're going to be flying F-18s in combat very soon.
Yeah, I mean that was on the horizon, and it's good that you kind of see that, Scott. When we finish or get a little bit further down the road, you'll see like the theme of perseverance pays off, and you know, just I think that's a good life lesson for
Yeah, for
everyone.
anybody.
because you're going to have ups and downs in your
sometimes
in your
you
life.
hit those roadblocks and you just got to put your head down and just kind of keep going forward, and then one day you look up and you're like, wow, look where I'm at now.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, I made it through that, and there might be, you know, more along the way. Like you had all these stumbling blocks essentially, but then there you are, boyhood dream.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's really kind of surreal because when I was in that Miami recruiting district and with the Marine Corps officer recruiters, so he had a pool of candidates, you know, in the South Florida region, and a friend of his, so my recruiter was an artillery officer, but he had a friend of his who he had made friends when he was in TBS, who ended up becoming a Marine F-18 pilot, and his squadron had just come back from Iraq. This was like late 2003 timeframe, and so they were doing a training detachment in Key West. So they'd done a lot of the obviously air to ground for the war, and then they came back and there's a lot of air to air ranges, and so they were going back to their air to air syllabus and have a little fun in Key West. So my recruiter asked me and the other candidates, hey, would you like to go to Key West and meet some like real Marine fighter pilots? Because we were all aviation officer candidates at that time. And I still have a photograph with all of us there standing by a Marine F-18 Hornet, and it turned out the squadron was known as it was Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 232, the Red Devils, and that ended up being the squadron that I got assigned to.
No kidding.
Coming out of F-18 school. So you talk about like surreal, like really coming full circle.
No kidding.
You know, here you are, now you're walking down the hallway of this, you know, fighter squadron.
Now that's your patch.
Yeah, and you got the patch on your chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really cool.
So how does that feel then? I mean, as far as, you know, I mean, obviously it's uplifting, it's everything that you wanted. Now you're there, and now that the prospect of what you're actually going to be getting into.
Yeah, well, you know, that's I have to admit, so you can put yourself on a pedestal and think that you're, you know, ace of the base,
cool.
but then you get, you know, put back down to size real fast, and and the culture at our squadron was just that. So, it was big ears and little mouth, and
earn it every day.
Yeah, and you are just lucky to be there is kind of how, if you had anything other than that attitude, they were going to correct it.
Fix that.
Fix it. But it was still cool because, they, at that time, now the Marine Corps squadrons are what they call composite squadrons. So with the sundowning of the Hornet and more F-35s coming into the aviation inventory, all the F-18 squadrons in the Marine Corps now are both single and two-seaters. Yeah. But at the time, you still had dedicated single-seat squadrons and dedicated two-seat squadrons, and there's a little bit of rivalry amongst the crowd, whether
military.
Of course there is.
Whether or not you got a Wizzo behind you, or whether you're in the cockpit doing it all yourself. And so the Red Devils were a single-seat squadron, and so you were happy to be doing that. But at the same time, you realize you don't have anybody in the back to help you out, so you better be on point. And then also we're just wingmen at that time, but your flight lead is going to bust your butt if you don't perform.
Sure.
So you go from on high, hey, I'm a winged F-18 pilot. I just did my aircraft carrier experience out in the Pacific. That was on the Abraham Lincoln, and now you're in the squadron, and it's like, yeah, we all did that, and we've all fought in the war, and we all have, some of these guys
we're all here.
Top Gun and all that stuff, so you're nothing special.
Yeah.
But you've got a whole new syllabus. I think that's one of the things that is good about the Marine Corps. Really, I'm sure the Navy and the Air Force are very similar, is you are always being challenged, and you've always got some new task that you have to prove that you can achieve. So you never get to really feel, full of yourself.
No, you're always going to be looking at what's the next thing, what do I have to do next, and I don't know about aviation, but I was never fully trained for anything. It's like, go figure it out and try not to hurt yourself, or more importantly, anybody else.
Yeah. It sounds like it wasn't quite like that though with the aviation stuff. I mean, you got to be on point.
But at the same time, I mean, it's it's inherently unforgiving, and whether it's going out for night tanker refueling, or one of the things about being on the West Coast. So the squadron, when I got to the Red Devils, they had just come back from deployment. So now they go to the end of the line in terms of the rotation for going back to deploy. And so, but you still have, the wars are still going on in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so the ground troops and all the other units that are preparing to deploy, they need to do their major exercises prior to deploying. And so the aviation assets, specifically on the West Coast, get tasked to do a lot of the exercises, so which helps on both ends. You're helping the ground troops,
it's getting used.
And then you're also, we've got live ordnance. You've got all different types of syllabus events that you can now participate in. So that was pretty cool, because the East Coast guys that are based in Beaufort, that's where the Marines fighter squadron or fighter units are on the East Coast. There's not as many live ordnance ranges.
They don't have 29 Palms.
Yeah, so that's where a lot of it is. You're going out to 29 Palms. So they actually have to schedule detachments to come out to the West Coast to do a lot of that stuff, whereas it's just every day for us.
Yeah.
So that was cool, because you're flying quite a bit with live ordnance, and then you've got the ocean there off the coast to do all your air-to-air stuff, and we got to do live missile shoots and dogfight all a bunch of different units and stuff. So it was really cool.
So at this point, while you're doing all this training, are you doing any carrier landings on this thing?
No.
So you haven't done anything with F-18.
Right. So I had to do day and night carrier landings in F-18 school. But then once I got to the operational squadron, So the way that the Marine Corps is set up, they have what's called like naval integration. So one squadron on each coast will be attached to a aircraft carrier, and the rest of the squadrons are basically tasked to the Marine Corps. So it's kind of interesting, like you're in a Marine squadron, but when you're assigned to the aircraft carrier, you basically fall under the Department of the Navy. So the Marine Corps kind of loses a squadron. And the Red Devils had been that carrier-based squadron on the Nimitz, but
now they're out of rotation.
They're out of rotation, and and 323, the Death Rattlers, ended up being the West Coast.
So how long are you doing this before you are in rotation, sent out?
So our deployment cycle. I got to the squadron kind of mid 2008, and we were slated to go to Iraq in 2009, like fall of 2009. And so now you're just training.
You're starting to work up.
Yeah. So you, as a wingman, your first syllabus qualification is to become what they call combat wingman, which basically means you've shown proficiency in all aspects of what the F-18 is capable of doing. So whether it's air-to-air stuff, you could, go and be a competent wingman in an air-to-air environment, or air-to-ground, same thing. So I completed that, and then you start working up for a flight lead syllabus. So now you're the lead, and was able to achieve that. And right about that time is when our deployment cycle switched. So if you kind of have to remember the student of history. So 2009, 2010 timeframe. So President Obama is now taken over, and the war in Iraq was dying down.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot going on, and the shift of focus went back to Afghanistan, and so our squadron was basically told to stand down from the Iraq deployment. Like, we probably weren't going to do anything anyway. You're just going to burn holes in the sky. And so the Helmand province was the main area of operations for the Marine Corps. And we got slated to be the first land-based F-18 squadron in Afghanistan. So prior to that point, all the F-18s had either been coming off the aircraft carrier or from bases surrounding Afghanistan. Nobody was
in Afghanistan. So you guys were the first ones in there.
So we were the first ones. The Harriers were there, and they had created an expeditionary airfield, kind of like World War II style, with the steel matting.
Steel matting, and
so they still had that capability, and they built an airfield. It was called Camp Bastion, and so they built that, and we started training to operate on the steel mats and be basically expeditionary style. So,
did they have the catapult systems for
no.
that?
So it was roughly about an 8,000 foot long.
Long enough to.
But they did have the expeditionary arresting gear.
Traps, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So our squadron was going to be doing kind of half and half from Kandahar and Bastion. But the main focus was the Marine Corps is doing all these operations, and they wanted to have the Hornet with its carrying capability, much bigger payload than a Harrier right over.
Yeah.
And a Marine always wants Marine air.
Yeah.
That's just given.
Yep.
So when you deploy over there, it's just fly all over the world and tank as you go, self-deploy?
So yeah, so our deployment cycle, we were slated to go in the summer of 2010. So, I spent quite a lot of time in California. I kind of joke, I was dropping bombs all over the place, but on, the sand people in 29 bombs, and this kind of goes back to our perseverance pays off type thing, like, or life deals you a bad deck of cards from time to time. So right before the squadron gets set to leave, we're doing our pre-deployment training exercise, and my health takes a downward spiral. And I ended up
heavy hit.
And I ended up getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and so I was not able to deploy.
So that was it for that.
Yep. So my Hornet career, my Marine Corps career, everything that I had ever wanted since a little kid just went
all stopped.
Screeching halt. So then it was a sit in your hospital bed at Balboa Naval Hospital, and what do I do now?
And is that something that you came up with right away, or is that something you had to sit on for a while and really kind of live with before you came up with something?
I basically, I still remember just sitting there, and I kind of said to myself, like, I've got two paths to take. I can either feel sorry for myself and play the victim card and all that stuff, or I can just chart a new path.
Do the next thing.
Yeah, and that at that point in time, my group commander, who was a full bird colonel, so I'm still a captain, in the Marine Corps. I guess mid to senior. I wasn't a senior captain. I was a mid-level captain. Yeah. All of a sudden, a colonel walks into my hospital room, and I was like, sitting up, and I'm like, holy crap, hey, sir. It's also kind of like a little bit of a leadership example, and one of his aviators is now, in a tough time, and so he came and visited. So Colonel Baja Calais. So if he ever listens to this, thanks a lot, Baja.
Yeah.
So he came in and talked with me, and he basically said that, you're a valuable asset in Miramar. We're not going to kick you to the curb right away. So he said, what I want you to do, you get to stay here in Miramar. We'll find a job for you, but I want you to try to figure out a way to set yourself up for success. And so I ended up working over at the sim building and on the base, and applied to go to graduate school with use my GI Bill benefits. So I ended up going to master's program at San Diego State, and then stayed there in Miramar, and then for another 2 years basically, and then punched out and started doing consulting work in the oil industry, something completely
that's like way different.
Yeah.
Is that just because of the feelings that you had from losing that dream that you needed to get away from it a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I needed to just detach, because it was pretty rough. You're just looking out, watching the jets fly over every day, and you're still with all your buddies, and they're talking about flying and what they're doing, and you don't get to do that anymore.
You're not part of that anymore.
Yeah. So my my former squadron commander at that time, he had left the Marine Corps, and he went and worked for actually the same company that I ended up working for. So he, it's good that we're talking about like leadership examples, taking care of your people. Also, the fact of like, if you do well, even if you're in I was a captain, I wasn't like a lieutenant colonel or anything like that. But I had done well enough and had a good enough reputation that when it came time for people in senior positions to look out for me, they did.
Yeah.
That reputation is everything, and especially as small as the Marine Corps is, it follows you.
Yeah.
So if you have a good reputation, people are going to take care of you. People are going to look to find ways to help you, and that's everything. I think that's one of the things about the service that most people don't get a sense of.
Right.
The good folks, your previous efforts really pay off when you don't think they necessarily will, or when in many other situations they wouldn't.
Yeah, and also, I was like, if you think about it, like, you don't know what to do. You've had a roadmap to success,
and all of a sudden
for all this time period, and then all of a sudden it just comes to a street. It's gone,
and it's not like any fault of your own or anything either.
Right.
You know, it's just an act of God or whatever you want to call it. And
For sure.
Then you're rudderless.
Yeah.
Essentially. So you
yeah.
do the oil thing for a little while.
I did that for about 5 years, and then a friend of mine said, "Hey, you know, if you really," he knew I just love airplanes. You identify as being a pilot.
Sure.
And so he said, "Hey, if you still are interested in flying, the FAA is going to start looking at putting out a protocol for people with diabetes to get back and start flying." Because up to that point,
I didn't even realize at that point you just weren't even allowed to fly.
Yeah, it was.
I just thought that was
a straight up no.
There's a no.
Yeah. So, and that was, not only the military, but
Everything.
I can't even go transition and be a civilian pilot.
Yeah.
So that was, a good kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. Good thing to know. And so I was living in New York City at the time, and decided to take a job at flight safety, doing aviation training for business jet pilots at their Teterboro training facility, which is where they train mostly Falcon business jet pilots. And so I just basically threw my name in the hat. They had an opening, and got the job right off the street. I didn't know anybody, and just.
So it sounds like it's probably a good thing that you took that 5 years, because you got to deal with the loss and the feelings behind that, but also being a type 1 diabetic, you got to learn how to manage that too. So I guess by the time you get to that point where the FAA is starting to open that up, you're pretty well in tune with what to do.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you've gone. I was on a roller coaster. Emotionally, physically,
Sure.
Everything.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. Yeah, like at that point, you've kind of figured this out. You've accepted what happened.
Everything.
And all that stuff. Well, and then now it's like, hey, I've got a new light at the end of the tunnel. And so I took the job, but it took. I was there at flight safety for another 5 years. So, we're pushing, 10 years
away from it.
Yeah, from flying, and then the message came out, here's all the protocol that they're looking for, and took me another year or so to go through that process, and I finally got my medical clearance back, and got a job flying a private business jet, big Falcon.
And you've been doing that ever since.
I've been doing that ever since. So.
But then...
then I come out to Colorado, so now we'll shift to the other part of why we're here.
Yeah.
So then I come out to Colorado, and I found out about the museum. I had always wanted to see a P-38 Lightning, and I'd never seen one in my life. And I just Google where are P-38s in the museums, and then sure enough, right down the street, you got this one here. And so I came to the museum, and it happened to be a fly day where you guys were flying the B-25, and so I got to see the B-25 flies, see the P-38, and talked to Don Johnson that day, and just asked him, like, how do you
do this?
Yeah, how do you become a part of this? And I had just moved out here, I had a new job, and so I wasn't really sure about how much time I could devote, and so it took a little while, and then I finally just said, I want to be a part of this, and then here I am, and it's been almost going on 3 years since I've started here.
Yep.
So
then you went out and decided that you were going to go spend some money.
Yeah. So a lot of people, you see that these airplanes fly, and then you start asking people, well, how do I get to do this? And the first question is, how much tailwheel radial time do you have? I don't care that you flew jets. I don't care that you landed on an aircraft carrier. This is a lot different.
Yeah. I brought a very rated pilot, Coast Guard guy, all that stuff, and we were at a fly day, and he's a very ebullient type, and they were flying a Thunderbolt that day. And this guy says, "How do I get to fly one of these?" And your dad is walking right past. He said, "You buy one."
Yeah. So
And
Yeah.
so
you went out and bought one.
And that was I have a couple good friends that I brainstormed with, and one of them said, if you're going to be the guy going like this with your hand out, you're going to probably be the guy going like this with your hand out for a long time. So if you really want to do this, you're going to have to go probably do it yourself. And then another friend of mine, he's got a T-28. He was a former Red Devil as well. He flies for FedEx now, but he told me, he said, everybody is going to tell you you're crazy and why are you doing this, and who would in their right mind would do something like this, but screw them, because you got one life to live. And he knew my story. I basically have a whole new lease on life, the way I kind of feel, and he knew my passion for aviation. He said, just go do it. He said, who cares
and that's exactly what you did, right?
And everybody's definition of in your right mind is way different.
So how did you go about it?
So I talked with you and Alan and your dad, and just tried to pick as many people's brains that were kind of in, basically like, you're doing what I want to do, so how do I get there?
Do that?
And so took your advice and your dad's advice and other people, and I found an airplane on the internet in Florida. And before I decided to commit to it, I said, well, I recognize that I'm not as good as other people might think I am, or even my own confidence. So I probably need to go get trained in this thing. And I went to Stallion 51 in Florida and went through their T6 checkout course, and that was a lot of money, but it was money well spent, because I needed it. There was no way I could jump in this thing on my own.
After you started doing that, when you started actually jumping into the T6 for the first time, then you kind of recognized that, this is what everybody was kind of talking about, right? Like, it's a different animal.
Round engine, tail wheel, and lively.
They don't call it the pilot maker for nothing. And I still remember the first day there, the instructor, he sees my background, and he's probably like, hey, this will be okay. I said, no. I said, you're probably going to laugh at me a few times, but I was like, just keep me safe, and then eventually we'll figure it out. And it was about, you fly twice a day for a week there, and it was really probably about after the morning session of the second day, so probably your third training flight is when I finally, the light bulb comes on. The air work was not as difficult, but the pattern work and all that stuff.
The air work's easy. It's getting it
Get-
on the
getting
ground.
up and-
That's what makes it really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So then you get through a Stallion 51, and then you decide, I'm going to pull the trigger on this beautiful SNJ-2. Which is really rare.
It's the rare bird. Only 61 of them were ever built for the Navy. And I bought it off of a gentleman. Unfortunately, he's passed away now, but Bill Sperling, he had it down in Stuart, Florida, and he had the airplane for a long time. And I didn't understand, you see it on the internet, and you see all these other airplanes, they have different paint schemes and stuff, and I thought that he had just randomly painted it this way. And then you find out, he told me the story that it was modeled after Admiral Aubrey Fitch, who was a two-star admiral, and he was the commander of Carrier Group 1 in 1941, and so he was, they call it a CAG bird, and the Navy still does it for their fighter squadrons. Will have a designated
wing commander.
Or wing commander. And so that was his airplane, and it was painted that way, and with the two-star admiral insignia, on the side. And so then when I found that out, I was like, well, that's pretty cool. It's unique. There's no other one that's painted like this. And then when he found out my story, he was like, you should have this airplane. Yeah, this airplane trained naval aviators back in World War II era, and you're a naval aviator, so it's yours.
Yeah.
And then the big question was, okay, well, I'm in Stuart, Florida with this airplane. I have 11 hours in a T6 from the school that I went to.
I need to get it back to Colorado
How do I get
Springs.
it to Colorado? And
Zoom,
so
zoom.
Yep. So one of the same friends that told me, screw it, go buy your own airplane, says, well, now, I said, hey, will you fly with me? He's like, no. He's like,
Rite of passage.
Another rite of passage. Go get in your plane and fly it out to Colorado. So now here it is.
And here it is.
Yeah.
And you've been flying it ever since, and you got a bunch of hours in it. And
Yeah.
getting real comfortable with it.
I've had it for a little over a year now, and you know, it's you better flip the switch every time you get in that thing and get your head on straight. But it's fun. It's fun to fly. I've taken quite a few people up, and it's fully aerobatic, and you can do all the fun stuff in it.
So again, as a pilot who grew up in what is still state-of-the-art jet fighter, turn your watch back 60, 70 years. Talk about getting your head into this airplane as opposed to strapping into the jet.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that there's probably two of the things that you don't think about as much. The noise and the vibration. A jet, it's quiet.
Oh, really?
Inside.
That's funny. I was going to say, F-18 is like the loudest jet that takes off out of this place.
Oh, no, F-35s are the awful.
Yeah, pretty loud.
But inside, it's quiet. It's not loud. And
That's
so,
pretty
you just think of kind of noise pollution, I guess, is probably the best way I would describe it, where it's distracting because there's a lot of vibration, and there's, it's like a Harley or something,
Yeah.
So with no muffler.
With no muffler, yeah. So there's that component. Also, these advanced airplanes now, whether it's a Falcon business jet or a fighter jet, they have all these monitoring sensors and systems.
So it's hard to get yourself into a bad spot.
Yeah. So it's you still got to go through the checklist and stuff, but it's going to tell you if you're not doing something right, or if something's out of parameters. This isn't going to tell you.
Well, this will tell you, but you got to understand what it's telling you.
You have to be able to
it's always,
listen, feel.
Yeah, they always talk to you, You'll
Right.
feel it and you'll know it, but if you're not trained in that to pick that up or know what's going on, then it'll bite you really fast.
Yep. So you're becoming one with the airplane is a lot more important.
And now you're a tailwheel pilot, so you're a real pilot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they say.
Yeah.
And
that was the third. That was the third thing I was going to say. I'm a student of digital fly-by-wire flight control systems. The Hornets fly-by-wire, the Falcons fly-by-wire. You never use your feet unless you want to steer, and then once you get airborne, you don't ever touch the pedals.
Yeah.
But this thing, you better have happy feet. Yeah.
Yeah. It's everything.
Yep.
So I guess the last question for me is what's in your future? What are you looking for? If you can map out the next 3 years, 5 years, where would you like to be with aviation? And considering all the roadblocks you've already gotten through, I imagine that it's pretty achievable for you, whatever it is.
My passion now, I'm really happy with the job that I have, and enjoying that. I don't have much desires in terms of my professional career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy where I'm at, but like Jim Tobel, and some of these other air show guys. I don't know if my bank account's big enough for that. Maybe I got to win the lottery, but at some point, somehow, figure out a way down the road to get into a little bit more of the higher performance, bigger warbirds. I don't know if it's all air shows and stuff, but something along that line. And if it doesn't happen, I'll be honest, I'll be disappointed, but at the same time, I still got a cool airplane.
Absolutely.
So that's ultimately the goal is.
Well, and I think the cool thing about it, the way you're doing, is it's yours.
Yeah.
You're not waiting for somebody to tell you can go fly it or you can't go fly it. You're doing it on your own, and you've accomplished that up to this point in your life. Everything that you've done, you've done on your own, and you've taken care of it. So that's something to be really proud of.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. You
Yeah.
got anything else there, partner?
No, I'm sitting between two guys who can actually fly these things, and I should just be quiet.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you very much for sitting down with us. We really appreciate and bringing your beautiful plane over to be a backdrop, and it'd be really. I was here for most of the day in the museum, and there was a lot of oohs and ahs when they were walking by it. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a beautiful airplane.
Yeah.
So nice job.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
And I appreciate.
brother.
Thanks for the invitation, and it's good to be with you guys and be at the museum.
Yeah, this is
I'm
a great
happy
place.
to be here.
All right,
Super.
Yeah,
nice.
Thanks.
great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, what do you think about all that?
Well, I've known most of Brian's story, but at the same time, haven't had a similar career derailment. I can feel what happens when you're on a path and you think you're doing well, and then boom, fate intervenes, and that's when an individual really has to reach down and say, okay, I've been dealt a crummy hand. What now? And to see the success from that, as exemplified by this airplane.
Yeah, I agree with all that for sure. And I think a lot of the stumbling blocks that he had to deal with just to even get to that point probably prepared him a little bit better.
Sure.
For, and I mean, there is no preparation for something like that, obviously, but I mean, he knows that he could put his head down in another direction and come out the other side of it as well. So, I mean, story, last episode, I think, what'd you say was, what was the word of the day? It was
Legacy.
Legacy, and this one I think is perseverance.
Absolutely it is, and that again in this case, things work out when and as they should.
As they should, yeah. As long as you kind of put the work in and you don't give up, and and even if you got to take 5 years off or something to get your head straight or reignite that passion, then you do it.
And that's the work you do, and that's what I mean. We have an exceptional bunch here, and I think there are several cases where people have overcome adversities, probably not to the extent that Brian has, but what was fun is as we were walking in, he said he had listened to episode 4. He said, "I didn't know Johnny flew Broncos."
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't either.
Well, and so what's cool about this is we're finding more and more about what an exceptional group of folks we have here. And I'm not just talking about the docents, I'm talking about an exceptional group of folks.
Yeah.
I really want to start looking at, the crew chiefs, the line people, the people that make these operations work.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their stories and stuff, so you'd like to hear those stories, and I mean that's why we're doing this.
Yeah,
it's not like we're making money off of this or anything. So
what?
Yeah, we keep writing the checks, but nothing's coming in.
Where's the endorsers?
No, and that's it, to be able to sit down and get that story. I mean, I've heard piecemeal stuff from him, but I've never heard why he was no longer flying F-18s. I had no idea. That was news to me. So to sit down and kind of hear that timeline and to really kind of get somebody's, not full story, but a much more in-depth story than you get when you're just passing through or seeing somebody for 5-10 minutes. You're usually talking about what's going on that day. So to sit down and kind of get that and to put it out for the world to hear is.
But the idea I had is, okay, this guy has flown frontline fighter jets.
Oh yeah.
And we heard all that process, well, not all that process, very brief description of all of the things that have to be done to get to that point And then now it's going back to a completely different era of flying.
Yeah, completely
And-
different type of airplane.
Yeah,
I mean, just to jump into a small tailwheel airplane is a completely different
yeah.
type of flying than it is to fly an F-18 or anything that's a nose wheel. I mean, hell, I fly the B-25 sometimes, and it's a lot easier to land that than it is to land a T-6. Let me tell you.
Well, I was sitting behind you on your most recent landing, and it was a damn good one.
Well, I appreciate that. We're all alive, and the airplane's still in one piece, so
And it can be used again.
it could be used again.
But
But yeah, it's a different airplane.
well, and I mean, I watch tail draggers. Either it's a gear landing or a 3-point or whatever, and I marvel at what the finesse and skill it takes to get these things on the ground.
You can get behind it, and you don't even know you're behind it yet.
Yeah.
And then it's really hard to recover. But if you have the right training, those guys at Stallion 51, I've never personally done it, but I looked into it, and and everybody that kind of comes out of there, they get a lot of training, and they get it really fast, and then it's kind of the right training, So
Yeah.
the trick is just to be able to feel the airplane before it even starts doing something that
Yeah.
it's going to do. Like you should, obviously when you get better and better at it, then you're anticipating before it's even doing it. But unfortunately, I mean, this airplane is something that it'll get you if you got 20 hours. It'll get you if you have 900 hours.
Well,
It's just one of those planes that it was designed to have problems.
well,
Because
this was the real cut.
It was the
for
last.
those
It was the
people.
last chance for romance before you jumped in by yourself.
Yeah.
And so you had to know how to fly this airplane. So, yeah, it's a different deal. It's a different deal for him to go through all that training. But the good thing about all the training that he went through is he learned how to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, all those years of learning, like you said, it was a continual. Okay, you learn this. Well, now you're still nothing. Now you got to learn
Yeah.
this, and then you got to learn this. So he had a lifetime of learning
Yeah.
how to.
Which continues.
So for somebody like me, I need a lifetime of going out and screwing up in little airplanes, and because I don't learn like that. I've never been able to. But so I think for him to be able to, it's a different trajectory he took than a lot of guys that fly T6s, because
yeah.
they'll spend a lot more time in a smaller tailwheel airplane for hours, hundreds of hours or whatever.
Sure.
And he didn't. He had a couple hours in a small airplane, and then he went to the T6.
Yep.
Well, but he went to a place where they have a syllabus, and he knew how to learn it.
Yep.
And so you see the effects of that is he was able to jump in his airplane, fly across country with, God knows how many unfamiliar little airports with unfamiliar wind patterns, and
Well, and put the thing down
and not have a problem. And so that's a
Yeah.
testament.
Yeah, that
you
is
know?
testament. Testament is a good word.
Yeah, and it's also, the guy was meant to fly, probably. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
It's something that
There's
he's
no
wanted to
doubt.
do since he was a little kid, and
Yeah.
he's still doing it today, despite
Yeah.
despite everything that's been thrown at him. So
Well,
it's
and
amazing. It's
you know,
heartwarming.
making
I think
it
it brought
work.
a little tear to my eye.
Ah, well, that's good. So with that, maybe want to do a little teaser about the air show, or
Yeah, so we don't have a whole lot going around on at the museum right now as far as flying. We finished all the documentary stuff. Our fly days is actually, as this is being taped, will be done tomorrow.
yeah,
So it's winter time. Won't be a whole lot of flying and stuff, but we are ramping up for next year's air show, and we don't have a major act this year, Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels, like we had last year, the Blue Angels. But we have some really exciting things that we're kicking around right now. Some stuff that we haven't seen here in Colorado that I think
yeah,
if we can wrap this stuff up, we're going to start making some phone calls after this weekend, and then we'll be hitting ICAST in December to really shore it up. But it's going to be if it starts to kind of take the shape that we're looking for, it's going to be a show to not miss. I could tell you that right now.
Well, I'm certainly not going to miss it.
I'm excited about it. Like we were just kicking around today at lunch, like, what about this? And it was like,
yes.
Oh my God, yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
I want all of this. So yeah, it's really
cool.
exciting. And then the other thing we got going on, actually, I guess I should say we do have stuff going on, is we are kind of getting close with the P40E project that we've been working on in Westpac.
For that.
So, and I don't have a timeline, and I don't want to put it out there, but I mean, in the next couple weeks to a couple months, we'll be starting all of the engine runs, taxi tests, and then test flying of the P40E.
P40E, yeah.
So that's something to come out and get your eyeballs on.
Well, there's plenty of stuff to come out and get your eyeballs on anyway.
Yeah, but and we'll still be flying the T6.
Yep.
Quite a bit. Don's been flying that, and I'll be getting in it probably here pretty soon. So yeah, we got some stuff going on, but until then,
I
guess we'll finish this up, partner.
Indeed, partner.
So if you got any thing you want to look at, you want to see our social medias, it's all on the description page when you find the website. We're on all of your audio websites, Spotify, Apple. If you're seeing this or you want to see the video on this, you go to our YouTube at National WWII Aviation. And please, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe to the channel, like the podcast, share the podcast. If you go to our personal Facebook, Instagram, I'm sharing the links to all this.
Yeah.
It'll just really help get the word out on this. We want to keep this thing going. We're having a great time.
I am.
And we just want to keep bringing more and more content. So please get out there and push those buttons.
We got content coming, brother.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Content.
So once again, for the National Museum of World War II Aviation and my partner Rob Gale and William Stephenson behind the cameras and myself, Scott Clares, thanks for watching another episode. Stay safe out there.